Audit reveals 21 million Kina of SOE funds exhausted. Proposed amendments to organic law on decentralisation. And lawyer for accused killer file application for transfer.
This is National MTV News with Helen Seah.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for Tuesday's news. After an independent audit by a private accounting firm, it's been established that 21 million Kina of 23 million state of emergency funds has been exhausted. Police Minister Brian Kramer and SOE Controller David Manning presented the audit report at a media conference this morning at the police headquarters. Annette Cora reports.
In what has been a nationwide call of concern from relevant stakeholders and watchdogs, the government, with the approval of Prime Minister James Marape, issued directives for investigations to be conducted in the use of the state of emergency funds. The police minister further tasked to engage a local private firm, Pape Accountancy, who was highly recommended by aid donor senior advisors. Andy Pape, the principal accountant of Pape Accountants and Business Advisors, was engaged to carry out the audit, an engagement approved by the SOE controller given the agency.
After consultation with the controller, Mr. Pape was engaged to carry out an internal investigation, independent internal investigation into the expenditure of the 23 million, and also to assess whether there was any basis of truth in those allegations of purported misuse of funds.
The 184-page report will highlight 14 objectives in the terms of reference and will be reviewed by both the controller and his minister before being forwarded to the Prime Minister with recommendations for further deliberation if need be.
We've conducted our independent internal investigation based on the terms of reference that was approved by the controller. There were about 14 objectives contained in the terms of reference, which we've satisfactorily looked into them. And based on our field work and the information that came into our attention, we've compiled a factual findings report.
The minister highlighting false and misleading allegations floating around social media, and that the report is expected to prove all these false allegations wrong, as the report will purely be evidence-based.
In relation to some of these allegations of the extensive millions being spent on hire car, we can confirm that is not correct, and that evidence is based in the report. And also some of the allegations that came to light on engagements of Chinese firms or hardware companies to procure equipment, those companies have not been paid. So they were in the process of putting in a submission to procure.
The controller giving assurance that his office stands committed to making sure that concerns relating to the use of SOE funds is addressed.
Whatever funds that were released by government or donor agencies for the purposes of our response to COVID-19, we committed to ourselves, to the country, that we would make sure that all expenditure, the processes in which we apply for funds, the process in which we spend those funds is consistent with laws and lawful process. The
onus of approval is on the Prime Minister now as to whether the audit report will be made public after it has been reviewed by the Police Minister and the Controller. Annette Cora, National MTV News.
The National Court will reconvene on Thursday to hand down its decision on the next step in the case between Belden Nama and the Leadership Tribunal that found him guilty of misconduct in office. The court today heard verbal submissions from parties involved in the case on what further orders, declarations or other remedies to be granted.
Lawyer representing Belden Nama, Greg Shepherd, submitted that his client is seeking National Court orders to quash in entirety the decision of the Leadership Tribunal that found Mr. Nama guilty of misconduct in office when he stormed into the National and Supreme Court building in 2012 while the court was in session. Nama is also seeking a permanent stay of the allegations of misconduct in office as contained in the charges and statement of reasons dated 23rd November 2015 and presented to the Leadership Tribunal. The Leadership Tribunal, comprising of Justice Terence Higgins and senior magistrates Patricia Tivese and Alex Kalandi, on April 9, 2018, found Mr. Nama guilty and recommended for him to be dismissed from office. The decision was stayed on July 5, 2018, following a national court order allowing a judicial review. Nama's lawyers put to court that the tribunal failed to give him an opportunity to address the tribunal on penalties after he was found guilty of 9 counts of misconduct in office. Last week, the National Court ruled in Nama's favor and convened today to hear submissions from lawyers on the appropriate remedies that ought to be granted. While Nama's lawyers want to quash in entirety the decision of the tribunal, state lawyers argued that Nama has already been found guilty. They recommended that if a new leadership tribunal team is to be set up, it must only look into the penalties and not the entire case. The matter returns on Thursday, July 16 for the court's decision. Meanwhile, Belden Nama is still suspended from performing his duties as the member for Vanimo Green. Shamin Poreambab, National EMTV News.
Nama's lawyers have also asked the court for an injunction. They believe this is also an appropriate remedy to prevent the public prosecutor from proceeding again under Section 27 of the Organic Law. They argue that unless granted, there would be a possibility of a third attempt to prosecute him on his reference, which is inherently and manifestly unfair and a breach of natural justice. Meanwhile, in Lae, the National Court there ordered that a court proceeding against the Lae City Authority be dismissed. The case filed by Jacob Maragao, Lae's local level government councillor, was deemed valueless. Maragao filed an originating summons that sought restraining orders on LCA and the Minister for Government Relations, Pila Ningi, of the legality of LCA, its revenue collection and delivery of the municipal services.
On the 16th of June this year, Jacob Maragao and his council brought before the National Court in Lae restraining orders against LCA and the Minister for Intergovernment Relations, Pila Ningi. Maragao alleged that the Lae City Authority took over functions of LULLG's revenue collection without a valid MOU required under Section 4 of the Lae City Authority Act 2015.
MOU no, Section 4 no, and by enabling all or one kind of functions, blah giving all at the moment. You know what one blah, functions giving away because of the resolution. Chachi looking more same, all can still continue. After that. After 19 no, you will got MOU. So you don't know what MOU, lo this no, and no MOU, so you will recently go back to court or something from there.
The defendant Lae City Authorities Council opposed the restraining order application and sought dismissal of the matter for not being reasonable.
The National Court's ruling makes it very clear that we are acting within the legal rights of Papua New Guinea law by an act of Parliament. It's actually surprising to us that they even took this to court, because an act of Parliament is illegal. It's a pass through Parliament, so it's legally recognised under our laws.
The Lae Aben LLG owes Internal Revenue Commission over 400 million kina under the previous management.
I want to ask the management of the Lae LULLG City Council, Mr. Collum, Mr. Gawi, personally, can you please stop lying to your staff and explain them the truth? You cannot pay their wages, even though we have put, and I've got it right here so that the media can check it, we have deposited all the money into your bank account to pay your staff. You need to explain to your staff why you and your management cannot pay the wages.
Since the establishment of the Lae City Authority Act, there was disagreement on the MOU. In November last year, LCA was given a direction by the Minister for Government Relations to collect all revenue and manage the affairs of LULG for a term of 1 year, which was also approved by all councillors, including Maragao.
So it's up to the stakeholders now. Stakeholders, it's including Mibla, all councillors, 6 councillors for LCT, one the chairman of Mibla, the Honorable James K, me yet, one the stakeholders also LCT authority, now one the land Mibla, office Mibla, the minister's office, Mr. Niningi, all know by Mibla must have proper consultation. Now, how by Mibla, proper MO.
According to Lay's National Court Acting Judge Paulus Doa last week, both the LULG and LCA have one common statutory purpose, that is to serve the people of Lay City. Acting Justice Doa dismissed the case last week Friday for being unreasonable. Doa said LCA has 4 months to operate without a MOU as required by the LCA Act. Julie Badui, Oa, National MTV News, Lay.
The man accused of killing the mother of his 2 children, Bosip Kaiwi, wants to be transferred to the Boroko police cells instead of the main prison compound at the Bomana Correctional Institute. His lawyer has filed an application at the National Court as his client's 2 weeks of quarantine comes to an end tomorrow. The matter, filed under human rights, has been listed for hearing on Thursday, 16th July 2020. The accused is currently remanded at the Bomana Correctional Facilities quarantine compound. He's being kept there as part of the Correctional Institute's COVID-19 safety protocols. The campaign to end gender-based violence and domestic violence is continuing. From non-government organizations to the bureaucracy, people around the country are doing their bit in raising more awareness, this time using pictures rather than words.
Simple, yet powerful. Trevor Mallon's images on the aftermath of gender-based and domestic violence issues sending a far-reaching message to the masses. The photographer doing his part to raise awareness on the issue after myriad reports in mainstream media.
We wanted to spread the awareness on gender-based violence. We wanted to tell people that it's real, it's here, these are the realities of it. And that piece that Leilani did, it was able to tell that story well from a victim's perspective.
He's been doing photography on various subjects, collaborating with other talented people. And his recent project titled Noken Paitimi has hit a new wave of following in the wake of recent protests in centers around the country. This is the first of a 2-part series.
It's real. It's underreported because people are afraid. People are afraid that if they report it, they might worsen the situation. The person that's perpetrating it might get revenge on them. And then also we have our cultural norms, you know. So people are afraid to report these things, and we wanted to spread this awareness so that people, you know, people who are aware of this, they can help those victims. They can speak up for them.
The issue of gender-based and domestic violence is slowly being addressed along various sectors of the society. Prime Minister James Marape a week ago making a statement on the issue at the vigil of General Kennedy, with other members of PNG society also standing up. NGOs, corporate bodies, as well as government and private businesses, all publicly declaring their support for the protection of people against being abused.
Gender-based violence is not just about females being the victim of it. There's also male victims. So we have a second part to it that we'll be working on. And in the future, if we need to do more, we will do more.
The next part of the project will focus on the more silent issue of men being attacked while being in a relationship and the difficulties that male society has in speaking up due to stigma, fear, and culture. Jeremy Moggy, National TV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. Among stories after the break, proposed amendment to the organic law on decentralisation, and farmers want better prices for their copra. Don't go away. Welcome back. The National Executive Council has approved a constitutional amendment for the organic law on provincial and local level government. This provides the constitutional basis for the law to be repealed and replaced with the proposed organic law on decentralisation. When making the announcement today, Deputy Prime Minister David Stevens said they hope to introduce the bill for its first reading in the November session of Parliament.
This NEC approval now gives the legal and constitutional basis for the proposed organic law on decentralisation to be enacted, replacing the organic law on provincial and local level government. Deputy Prime Minister David Stevens says this is an important constitutional amendment that addresses the issue of decentralisation. It ensures government powers are not only held in Waigani.
The powers are not held in Waigani. Powers to make laws, powers to manage our resources, decentralized, but decentralized in a graded or gradative process.
The process to review the law started during the Alato Accord 2012. The review was undertaken by the Constitutional and Law Reform Commission and the Department of Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs, and it has taken over 7 years for consultation with stakeholders. According to the Deputy Prime Minister, consultation with stakeholders shows that there is a need for an amendment.
All the consultation has confirmed that there is a need for this country to search for a form of decentralization that suits greater representation, greater democratization, greater citizen participation, and inclusive growth for our country.
The DPM says the bill will be drafted and made available for public debate. He hopes that the bill is ready for its first reading in Parliament during the November sitting.
More importantly, to target the socialization that must take place amongst our leaders, especially members of Parliament. I should like to think that the amendment to the organic law on decentralization will be gazetted and should be ready for first reading in the November sitting.
The organic law on decentralization provides the legal arrangements that will empower lower levels of government to take more responsibility on economic growth and service delivery.
This organic law will also set the basis and the foundation for healthy competition amongst our provinces, where power is given based on performance. So performing provinces will receive powers based on assessment.
The DPM further commended the NEC for their vision to have this law amended, saying the amendment is timely as there is a need to amend other important laws in the future.
It's necessary. It sets the foundation for the new Papua New Guinea that we have to work towards, especially in light of the 50 years anniversary of our independence approaching. Radical or shifts, transformations need to take place in the area of laws.
Rayon Lakingu National, MTV News.
The people of Golala have been warned to look after services given to them or they risk losing new funding and projects to the area. Member for Golala and Transport Minister William Sam issued this stern warning when presenting checks to 3 different projects in the Ward 14 area of the Woitape LLG in Golala Central Province. Projects with up to 500,000 kina have so far been delivered to this ward alone.
Golala district in the Central Province is one of the least developed in the country, and the reason one gets to here most times is the rough geographical terrain. And no one can deny that. Even their own Member of Parliament, William Sam, attests to that fact. But he has done what little he can to bring some form of service to these people, a people he represents as the Member of Parliament. And today he presented to the people of Woitape LLG some projects they asked for a while back. Projects include coffee rehabilitation, court officials' uniforms and musical instruments for a church group through the Church Partnership Program.
And even though we are so close to Port Moresby, but because of terrain and ruggedness of a place, it's so isolated like this. That is why with all those 5 programs, in total we've spent about just over 500,000.
The checks for these projects were written directly to the suppliers to supply items needed and not to councillors or individuals. But these projects came with some word of caution to the users.
This is the second lot of help coming, and I can guarantee you that third one is not coming. Third one is not coming, subject to how you perform with this one. If you go and mess it up with like any others, you can kiss that service goodbye. We are not here to give service for vote in 2022 or whatever.
Transport and logistics for the movement of these project items to their location will be covered by the DDA under a separate budget. Previously, the Goilala DDA, through their member, funded the Ward 14's water supply project and mobile sawmill. This equipment also yet to be airlifted to Waitape. Ward 14 Councillor Alan Magun thanked Mr. Sam for the projects.
Thank you very much on behalf of my people, and I will stand by you to still continue on delivering service.
He assured the member he will now concentrate on ensuring these projects get off the ground by spending time in his ward in the village. Ruth Rongula, National MTV News.
A landowner association from the K92 mine is calling on the Mineral Resources Authority to postpone the MOA review, which will be conducted in Kokopo this week. Billy Moya Landowner Association Chairman Johnson Urinke says this is because there are pending issues within the association that are yet to be solved. He said the review may lead to more problems within the association.
According to Billy Moya Landowner Association Chairman, there are still pending issues within the association. They are calling on the Mineral Resources Authority to suspend the MOA review.
Maki Mouse Plong Community, Billy Moya 1, 2, 3, 4, house line. Olino Amamas Long display review, only like walking long Kokopo.
There are also leadership issues within the association that has caused differences between two factions. They are calling on MRA to address this issue as it may lead to more problems.
Time me look inside on this association me play got plenty heavy and mister. Leadership issue me big play too much, which the company MRA two plus stakeholders inoinable look savelo display.
According to the chairman, there are also issues with compensation agreement. Urinke says the landowners are yet to sign the compensation agreement for the mine, and they want more consultation with the landowners before the MOA review.
That's why the like talking MRA must postpone in this agreement. Ego past time. Now must go inside long community long kisin view long 10 black clan.
Deputy Chairman Busosio further highlighted issues of association directors. He says following their last election, their 3-year term has expired, and according to their constitution, they cannot sign the reviewed MOA. And there are also pending court cases to have these issues solved. They say they are following due processes to have the MOA suspended until all issues are solved.
Now, this 3 years term may expire along 4th of April 2020. Now me blabusim na stop. Usat them by sign long this MOA.
According to the chairman, teams from various responsible authorities and landowner association will be in Kokopo this week for the MOA review. Rayon Lakingu, National MTV News.
Copra farmers on Karkar Island want better pricing for their produce, with more buyers on the island to give them more options on their copra. A number of farmers MTV interviewed at Kinem Station say farmers need at least 3 or 4 more buyers to create more competition in order to boost copra prices on the island. Farmers say copra production is a daunting task that takes a lot of time, effort and resources, yet they get little value out from their copra bags.
This is one of the copra buying depots on Karkar Island. It belongs to the recent copra buying company Linguan. Farmers are coming with truckloads of copra bags to sell at the depot. Here the bags are weighed at 1 kina 25 toya per kilo and stored at this warehouse ready to be shipped to Medeng town.
Time do papa line, tumuna line do me come do papa line come do now me now. One block do this logo the line. Coming up now Time lingguan em come inside. True me look him change him come up lik. Me need him plenty more buyer, 2 blow, 3 blow more buyer lo come inside.
Farmers say the cost of living has increased and the only resource Karkar Islanders depend on is coconut or copra. They say they need money for school fees, savings, paying for goods and services like health and other necessities.
Price blow again, no good something I'm going to. So me leave the only resource him coconuts, copra.
Another copra farmer says though there is now a third buyer on the island, it is still not sufficient. They still want more buyers so that it can increase the price of copra on the island, which in turn can improve the standard of living for farmers.
Money mi pla kisim liklik lo copra lo tupla past time buy mi pla inapim school fee or mi pla buy clothes na one em kaika inside blouse mi pla sa sort. So now yet number 3 buyer ka mi pla lukim sem. Em inapim like na ting ting blom pla but ino big pla.
Last month, Medang provincial government gave 1.5 million kina to the third buyer Linguan company to subsidize copra prices on the island, while Sumkar DDA gave 600,000 kina as subsidy to Linguan and the 2 local buyers, Kulili and Biabi. They got 200,000 kina respectively.
This time, so some impact blow changes and come up inside law district blow regarding copra and cacao.
However, a statement by Brett and Derek Middleton of Kulili Estates says the full subsidy payment of 1.5 million kina of public funds was given solely to a Chinese company, while Kulili and BRB Enterprise, the 2 long-standing PNG-owned companies, received no subsidy funding from the provincial government. Another farmer, Tony Dibul, says there needs to be an equal playing field when it comes to giving subsidy funding to buyers, adding the recent 1.5 million kina given to Linguan company alone does not create an equal opportunity for the other 2 buyers to compete with Linguan.
Suppose also government funding also become long end. Government funding must go along all the buyers. All the buyers or all buyers by Ikeniga Despla opportunity where government give him long end, long all he can fairly compete.
Martha Louise, National EMTV News, Medang.
And now looking at the NASFund market report, the kina opened unchanged at $0.288 in the interbank markets. At Bank South Pacific, your kina is buying $0.2805, $0.4002 Australian dollars, $0.2393 euro, and 29.45 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading lower, coffee closed lower, cocoa and copra closed higher. Crude oil is trading lower, palm oil and copper closed higher. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 10.5 points higher. The ASX 200 is trading at 46 points lower, and the All Ordinaries is trading at 46.7 points lower. National EMTV News continues with more after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 3 cancer cases can be prevented by simply choosing to live a healthy lifestyle. To raise more awareness on cancer prevention, the Png Cancer Foundation announced their new campaign collaboration with Paradise Foods Limited. This campaign will run throughout October to support women's health awareness.
Paradise Foods Limited will be joining the Png Cancer Foundation to support women's health awareness in October through their bottled water brand Trutruwara. In this twofold sponsorship, the first part is creating awareness of women's health through the bottled brand carrying the pink ribbon.
Secondly, we're sponsoring a provisional education campaign where the Png Cancer Foundation will come to the Morobe show and sit alongside us to promote women's health awareness.
In 2019, the Pinktober month saw over 3,500 participants at the Foundation's awareness workshops held throughout the country. Through these outreach activities, the message of cancer prevention by making healthy lifestyle choices is made known.
Awareness or raise awareness on women's health, and particularly the three main cancers that are prevalent in our country in PNG.
The Foundation also plans to conduct on-site workshops for staff of Paradise Foods Company in the nation's capital and in Leh. Lilian Sopera Kinea, National EMTV News.
Oil Search Limited today donated critical personal protective equipment to the Department of Health to be distributed to hospitals and medical clinics in Hela, Southern Highlands and Gulf provinces. OSL Managing Director Dr. Kieran Wolf commended the government's response during the pandemic and says the company will continue to work with the government to see much needed assistance reach local provincial health authorities while ensuring to prevent and minimize any potential spread of COVID-19 in the country. Wolf added the company is looking forward to working in close partnership with the National Department of Health through the company's medical services team and the Oil Search Foundation, where work has already begun since the declaration of the state of emergency. A total of 250,000 hospital-grade disposable masks, 100,000 medical hats and gloves, 10,000 face shields and 5 million milliliters of hand sanitizers were donated today. The ceremony was witnessed by Oil Search executives and the Health Minister, Jalsa Wong. Chukai Sports is next. Kilawani is back at the sports desk.
Thank you, Helen. More news on Intercity Cup, Intercity Rugby League and football. Join me after the break.
Chukai Sports.
Welcome to Chukai Sports. The Papua New Guinea National Rugby League competition may not have a video referee system for the Digicel Cup matches for accuracy purposes, but they do have a system in place for teams to register complaints against the referee's conduct during matches.
The Digicel Cup competition is the premier rugby league competition in Papua New Guinea and serves as the elite level competition for aspiring rugby league players in Papua New Guinea. But officiating a competition with consistency and accuracy to be transparent to the fans of the game, there has to be improvement in the officiating in the match. Apart from having match officials on the ground level, they do not always have the best angles to see and make accurate decisions. The question has been thrown towards the likelihood of having video referee decisions, but Papua New Guinea National Rugby League competition manager Stanley Hondina says while they need the option, PNG NRLC doesn't have the capacity for that.
We want to do it, but we don't have the capacity, and if we can do it, we can do it. But we are mindful of that, and that's something that we are thinking of going forward. But how do we do is the thing that we're still working on. So once we have it, we are keen to get up there. We want to get that done.
The National Rugby League, the pinnacle of rugby league competitions, has the bunker that reviews decisions, but it cost the NRL more than $3 million to set up. So much money. PNG NRLC coaching match official and referee Guma Opi says under international rules of rugby league, the referee's decision on the field is final and has to be accepted.
As saying that referees, when you make the decision, you have to accept the decision, not you won't change this decision. So what is wrong or right, but they will still accept it. But they will come back to me and I will, explain them what to do.
While the decision is final on the field, it can be challenged by the team's officials and registered with the match review committee.
So when they register their complaints with the competence officer, he lists it up in the match review committee meeting, and then they deliberate on the match review committee's meeting. I'm not a party to the match review committee, and they use those guidelines to discuss issues that happens on the field, and then they write to the clubs individually advising them of the outcome of the findings in guidance with the competition documents that we have.
The match review committee also deals with all manner of infringements during the match, but it depends on the teams and the match observers to note down so it can be addressed in the committee meeting.
The infringements and dirty plays and all this, if the ref puts on report, that automatically triggers the match review to come in, or if the independent match observer or the coaching match official identify a fault that they feel that it needs to be raised, then they register it on a match sheet that's there, and then they submit it after the game.
Fidelis Sukina, Trukai Sports.
Still in Intercity Rugby League, a 30-point lesser has got the Central Dabaris working twice as hard. In the training session today, Bagelo Solian, Dabaris coach, stated the team is working on areas that needed improvement from round 2. More emphasis in the ruck area. Words from the Central Dabaris coach after the struggle against the Snakes Tigers last weekend. Central Dabaris coach Bagelo Solian says Snakes Tigers is a very disciplined side. Dabaris slacking off up the middle caused their loss to the Tigers. In the training session earlier today, Solian said it's back to the basics. As they prepare to face Kimbercatters this weekend, the lineup hasn't been shuffled much. The coach believes in his team and says the attention is given to the 17 men to take the team forward one game at a time. In the meantime, coach says the loss of Jack Kedder is unfortunate and a loss to the Central Province Rugby League community. Solian's early days in the code was under the mentorship of Mr. Kedder. Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back. Gulf ISO started out the intercity competition losing 2 games. In round 1 against Central Dabaris and round 2 against Agmak Gurias. Coach Nigel Hukula says he wasn't disappointed. After 2 straight losses in the Digicel Cup, the Gulf ISOs are not giving up and are looking at their defense and attack closely. Coach Nigel Hukula says he is not disappointed with his boys, but says there is a lot to improve on. After losing 2 times in a row, coach noted the need for a controlled game. During their training session today, emphasis was given to direct play. Hukula says after coming back from the COVID break, it's been a kickstart for the team, working on the basics again, including tackling techniques and passing. In the meantime, ISO's versatile players Nelson Wack and Smith Severi have been ruled out for this weekend's game against the Hagen Eagles due to head injuries. Coach noted that this is unfortunate for the team as both are the team's experienced players, but he is counting on the young robust players including Alvin Kevaru, Ray Amos and Raymond Batia. The National Soccer League Board has approved the reopening of another transfer window for players taking part in the Kumul Petroleum National Soccer League. There are 8 rounds remaining before the finals. Acting NSL manager Dimirit Milang said with the competition set to resume on the 1st of August, the transfer window will be for 7 days only and will be from 25th to the 31st July. Some franchise requested for the transfer window as their players failed to return, leaving them without a complete roster. To NRL, there are increasing concerns tonight that Australia's recent surge in COVID-19 cases could again derail sports leagues. The NRL tightens restrictions on players this afternoon and is considering more drastic measures.
Growing fears of an outbreak in New South Wales, players at the 12 non-Queensland-based clubs reverting to strict bubbles conditions to avoid community contact. They're now only able to leave their homes for training and games.
It's obviously not ideal, but we sort of only just got the sort of news of it an hour ago. So I think we'll catch up tonight as a playing group and then just sort of see where that sits us.
The league also discussing contingency plans to relocate north if the situation worsens.
The NRL is prepared, and this would not exclude moving all teams to Brisbane to a safe environment to continue the competition if they have to.
Meantime, the Warriors are trying to cut another big name after this season, telling Kiwis veteran Adam Blair he's surplus to requirements. Blair has a player option for next year, but the club has asked him to move on.
Trukai Sports ends there. Helen will be back with the weather forecast.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoniPlus, with you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Mostly fine, then possible afternoon showers developing in Port Moresby. Cloudy with occasional rain drizzles in Daru. Mostly fine, then chances of afternoon rain drizzles in Kerema. Cloudy with rain showers and drizzles in Alatau. And cloudy with occasional light rain drizzles in Popondita. In the Mamasa region, cloudy with rain showers easing in Lee, mostly fine, though cloudy at times in Middang, and mostly fine weather in Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, cloudy with possible rain showers in Lorengau, morning rain showers and drizzles easing, then mostly fine weather in Kavieng, mostly fine, though cloudy in Kokopo and Rabaul, cloudy but mostly fine, then possible afternoon showers in Kimbe, and mostly fine weather in Buka. And in the Highlands region, morning fog patches clearing, then mostly fine with chances of afternoon showers right across the region in Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabag. Forecast for small crafts within the coastal waters of Papua New Guinea for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG, Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru, through the Gulf of Papua to Hood Point to Cape Rodney, seas of 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Kerema to Yule Island to Port Moresby with waters of Western Milne Bay Islands, including East Cape to Cape Vogel to Finschhafen, and with waters of Finschhafen through Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to Siasi Island to Long Island, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Cape Rodney to Samarai Island to Eastern Milne Bay Island, seas of 1.5 to 2 meters. Waters of Long Island to Karkar Island to Wewak to Aitape to the northern PNG Indonesian border, with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, and with waters of New Ireland, East and West New Britain, and waters of Bougainville, seas of 0.5 to 1.3 meters. A look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. In the Coral Sea, seas moderate to rough with east to southeast winds at 20 to 33 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas slight to moderate with northeast to easterly winds at 10 to 20 knots with gusts to 25 knots to the south. In the Bismarck Sea, seas slight with east to southeasterly winds at 10 to 15 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas slight with northeasterly winds at 10 to 15 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoniPlus, with you always.
And that's been the news, sport and weather for today, Tuesday, 14th of July 2020. From all of us here at EMTV, pleasant viewing. Good night.